Hey everyone, my name is Andrew Davis and you are watching Conversations in Pop Culture, brought to you by my sponsors, Mixum Printing, the smarter way to print. I know printing your creative project can be confusing and stressful, but Mixum is here to make it easy. From their instant quote calculator to let you get as many quotes as you want for free to their 24-hour customer service support, Mixum is here to make sure your printing experience runs smoothly from start to finish. And right now, you can choose from a range of premium printing options and materials. And the company has also printed so many successful Kickstarter campaigns, and a bunch of them you've even heard about on this very show. And they currently offer services in the United States, Canada, Australia, and the UK. And Mixum can print and reach your audience anywhere in the world. So if you're ready to print smarter, not harder, head over to Mixum.com. And right now, they're running a promotion where listeners on my show can drop my name, Andrew Davis, in the message tab of a current order to get a 5% discount on their first order. So that is Mixam.com. Again, type my name, Andrew Davis, in the message tab of your current order to receive a 5% discount on your first order. And my second sponsor is BCW Supplies, where you can use code POPANIMECOMICS, that's POPANIMECOMICS, to get 10% off your entire order. So when you're shipping comics, cards, trading cards, or you need your long boxes, short boxes, you can get 10% off on all of those items by using Pop Anime Comics. And then when you need to order again, you can use the exact same code again and again and again to continue to get 10% off your order. And I know when I'm buying $500 worth of comic supplies, that's $50 and it adds up really, really quickly. And so I have with me comic writer and artist Madison, Hawthorne, and Ozzy Longoria, who's been back, I think it's 4 or 5 times, Ozzy.
More, I think.
Coming back till 2022. I'm sorry. It's 22 days without being on my show. I refuse to have you back. And
I want to be the last one, too, of the year.
The New Year's Eve countdown show.
Yeah, Ozzy should just be the countdown show. We should just not even, I won't even do a show. I'll just hop onto a live with Ozzy like at 11:55 on December 31st. I mean, they're going to count down. I don't know where I'm going to be. I'm probably going to be half drunk, not full drunk, but half drunk. It's going to be great, but that's not what we're here to do here. So obviously, welcome to the show, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
you're moving up in the world. You have a sponsor, 2 of them.
I have 2 sponsors, and this is Mixum's second round with me, which is crazy. So it's nice. Super, super interesting. But that's a different story for a different day.
Yeah, good for you.
Hey. It took 9 years to get here. 9 years. But obviously, the 2 of you have a very interesting project going on Indiegogo right now. And that is ETA, Volume 1. I might have got the name wrong, so correct me if I'm wrong.
ETA.
I stand corrected. I don't know everything. So obviously, what is this story? Because it is samurai. It is dealing with feudal Japan. It is dealing with, daimyos and land and feuds, and sort of has got a twist on history, and all the works are going on with it.
Right. So if you read the title of the Indiegogo itself, where it says a trope-busting samurai tale. So essentially it's in that vein of where like you see a lot of samurai stories where it's basically just about like they're like kind of one-dimensional and it's all about honor and for the house and things like that. This is a story about a person who's born Eita, which is basically the lowest class in feudal system Japan, who happens to find himself in the service of a samurai. And right when he's like at the cusp of achieving all his dreams, everything goes south real quick. And it's about his kind of quest to climb back to the top to achieve his dream of becoming a lord. And it really focuses on kind of like the politics and the different dynamics of feudal Japan, where, things weren't always so straightforward with like people just, all about honor and things like that. People were scheming and conniving and going behind people's backs for different things. Just like in any landscape, be it medieval Europe or today. It's like this. It kind of twists the notion of like just the idea that all samurais were just completely noble. No, all samurais were people, and they all had ambitions and motivations.
So to even go into this a little bit more, because obviously my company's name is Pop Anime Comics, so I'm a big anime fan, I'm a big manga reader, and I enjoy samurai tales and things of that nature, like 47 Furious Tales and 47
Right.
Ronins.
Yep.
And obviously one of my favorite books is Vagabond. And, what is this
All
like?
good books.
I mean, Lone Wolf and Cub is a classic, right? You
Right.
know all of them, right?
Yes. Yep.
So what is this like for you? Because obviously there is a style where your book, I don't want to say it's manga, but it's got a manga feel to it. It also definitely pays tribute and pays respect to what has taken place in Japan and the history. And even for you, Ozzy, what is that like to draw it and really capture that? Because it does have a very Japanese feel to it, very Japanese vibe to it. And that's very unique, where that's not done in American comics so much. And I find it so interesting because there's also a lot of research and history, and it is something that is well done from what I've read of this. And so what was that like, really making sure that you're accurate? Because I don't want to say I'm a purist, but when we go down the road of samurai, there are rules that have to be followed with those types of books.
Yeah, for sure. First, I gotta say, I don't think this is like manga at all. Like, not even the story. I mean, obviously it's in Japan, but I don't know. I'm not a big fan of manga, but I've read a few of the mangas, and obviously manga is a style on its own, and it's got a sorry, get out of here. It's got a this is I think this is a little different, and I don't see it like that at all. I am doing my own stuff. I'm doing a lot of research. We actually doing a lot of research. He sent me a lot of links, a lot of images at the beginning of each book, and then I do more research. I love to do that. From we talk about how they dress, how they behave, which is completely different from the manga approach. So it's a little Americanized version for sure.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely an Americanized version, but it definitely has those kind of influences, like you said, Lone Wolf and Cub. If you ever read like Shikuri, Death Frenzy,
Right.
like 47 Ronin, all of that, like that is that's like part of it. Like Lone Wolf and Cub is almost a history lesson into samurai culture in and of itself. If you've ever read it, if you haven't read it, I recommend you go read it. If you're into those type of things, it's a lot. It's probably one of the longest stories you can read that actually doesn't blow the ending. Like the more people stretch stories out, the ending gets bad. But this is definitely kind of in that vein. But it's definitely an American version of it. And what I wanted to do with that is stay true to the history and the traditions and what people did back then. But also I wanted to make sure that I added that human element to it, right? Because a lot of times that's all you get is that depicted of what are the traditions and how everyone behaves. But people make mistakes. People get lit off the hook. Like it wasn't always like if you messed up as a samurai, you had to commit seppuku. Like it wasn't like you know what I mean? Depending on who your lord was or who your master was, they might be like, you know what, I'm gonna act like I didn't see this. That stuff happens in real life. Like that's the right. Real thing. Whereas in other stories, it's like, oh, you messed up. Now based off of tradition and based off of what everything says, you have to commit seppuku, or you can't like even being say like a Eta, which is the name of the story. Like essentially, you would never be able to become a samurai, but there's always those exceptions, and that's kind of like what I'm getting at with this story, while also keeping it that fictional element to it, so that there's still like that kind of whimsy and that like that action and a little bit of so you can suspend your disbelief. So it's not like so hardcore that it's just straight historical fiction. It's still a fun action drama comic book.
A lot of fantasy, a little bit of fantasy too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to even dive a little bit into this story, and I'm sure I'm going to get the name wrong, is that we have a man named Seike, I want to say, or
Yep, that's right, Seike. Yep,
Seike, who is born pretty much the lowest tier and is an Eta, and he sort of rises up and is about to become a daimyo. And then he has his own lands and sort of, you know, I guess it's kind of like, you know, the equivalent is becoming, you know, and, you know, coming out of nothing, out of like straight out of poverty and to becoming a billionaire through hard work is a good way to look at it for those who don't want a comparison. And
hard work. Yeah.
And then, hard work, guys.
Yeah, hard work. Yes.
So obviously, and then he sort of picks the wrong side of an entire battle between Tokugawa and Mitsunari.
Yes. Yeah, Shida Mitsunari and Iyasha Tokugawa.
I've already admitted defeat on names today.
That's all right.
They're tough. Yeah.
So, and obviously, what was this like really picking it up and setting it up? Because both those people that we just mentioned are real people. Obviously, Tokugawa, anybody who knows Japan history, was the shogun who united everybody and united Japan. And now we have CK back down to nothing again, and well, he's determined to climb back out of hell, climb back out of poverty, and do whatever it takes to, you know, get back what is his. And that's kind of the story, and it's a very interesting story. And I think it's a story that could resonate with a lot of people because it's not that CK just got knocked down. It's that he's now left with pretty much what he had before, which is nothing. And that. So where did all this even come from? Where did the idea come from? Because it's so interesting. And obviously that's not, I don't think that's the driving force, but it's how he's going to get it all back, I think is the story.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, I mean, a lot of those stories you mentioned early were a big influence on this story. And just my personal interest in Japanese culture and those things. And then the story itself, it comes from, It's kind of the idea, like you said, it mentioned like Tokugawa. So it's like if you were, you know, if you won a big battle, like even like, all right, let's go to America, the Civil War, right? So there's a Civil War, right? The Union versus the Confederacy. The Union wins, right? But then it's like as soon as the war is over, everything isn't all good, right? Everybody isn't like, okay, we lost, I'm with the Union now. No, they're like, you know, some people are still like the South will rise again. Like, you know what I mean? Like some people aren't letting it go. And Seike kind of, in many ways, is lucky and unfortunate at the same time to essentially be right there, to be on that losing side and get knocked back down. But he's lucky enough to be in that transition period where things aren't as strict and set in stone, you know? So he's kind of right in that, like right after that battle, right when, you know, Tokugawa's trying to bring the wayward houses to heel, the ones that still don't want to like accept him as the shogun and all those things. So he's got things occupied elsewhere. So Seike can kind of maneuver him and try to politic his way and fight his way to getting back to where he wants to be.
Yeah, and it's very interesting because obviously the story from this point and what we just spoke about, for those who want to read this story, doesn't spoil anything, because that sort of is just the first few pages of issue 1. It's pretty clear that, and now Seike has a lot of choices to make because, you know, while I think Seike is sort of a samurai and is in that class, and now, you know, Seike is still a samurai, but obviously has to figure out what to do. And we're now getting into who Seike is, and we're figuring out what drives Seike and the choices. And it's very interesting because we get a character who had it all, and then that character loses it all but wants it all back, and then we find out what Seike is being made of. And it's very interesting to get this quest on this character and how he interacts with a variety of other people and what he is doing and even how he's making choices. And he makes good choices and bad choices throughout this entire book and what's going on with it. And, things sometimes sort of work out. And so what is this like? Because you don't get the reset with Seike per se, but we as the reader don't know his past beyond the fact that he just picked the wrong side, but he still has things from the past that hunt him. And so I would imagine it's very interesting as a writer because you get a reset, but you don't erase the past, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Ozzy did a good job with because even when I'm writing it, I'm trying to throw these little flashback scenes in there and just trying to make sure they work, and Ozzy did a good job of making sure kind of those work and were clear as far as like with the comic and when you're reading it and it's obvious, like you're not confused, like, oh, what just happened here? It's obvious that it's kind of a flashback, and I kind of piecemeal those flashbacks in throughout the story so that people can get an idea of his background and kind of what drives him to kind of do some of the things that he does in the story, but without having to do 20 pages of expose about his background. I think I'm giving enough to kind of give insight into the character, and Ozzy put that together great as well.
Yeah, there's a great balance in doing that. Actually, I give him a lot of props for that because not a lot of writers can do that balance between flashbacks and the real life, what is happening. And this book has all that, and it's got a lot of action. It's got romance. Well, not romance, correct, sex.
Yeah.
Oh, it's got sex.
Seike is he's not a romantic. He's
Look
not a
like
romantic.
this, eh?
Well, it's a little nudity. That's the little of nudity. But
This is 17. It's a 17 plus story.
Oh, it's Indiegogo approved, right? Totally. They totally love that scene.
Yeah, there's a little bit of everything that everybody likes. So
Even to talk about this a little bit more, because me and Ozzy have spoken about, and we're not going to name whose Kickstarter it is, but Ozzy knows who I'm referring to, where I felt that issue 1 was completely useless and 80% of issue 2 was completely useless too. And because the story was going too slow. And this is, I'm not beating somebody up for no good reason, where I felt that the person is writing a 6-issue miniseries and they should have just turned it into a 4-issue miniseries and cut out all of issue 1 and it would have been fine. Or even turn it into 5 issues. And so what is that like? Because obviously when you're doing the flashback stuff, because this story starts off, and I get the gist within the first few pages of what just happened and where we're going. And I don't want to be bogged down with 20 pages of useless information on a flashback that could be told in 5 pages, or maybe you do the flashback in issue 6 or issue 3 or issue 4. You don't do it in issue 1, if that makes any sense. And I think that's the mistake with my friend who wrote, is that he should have started the story in the middle, then worked slightly forwards, then took a step back and continued forward. Because I would have been more interested and invested at that point for a flashback. So what is that like, making that conscious decision to throw the flashbacks in later? Because as a reader and as a consumer, I hate when we do somewhat linear stories where I get all the backlog information in the first 3 issues and then we get all the action in the second half.
Right. So, like I said, I try to sparse those in there intermittently. There's a little bit of it in this, and if you go to the Indiegogo in this volume, there's a little bit of it put in there. Like I said, Ozzy did a good job of in 1 or 2 pages, paneling it out perfect. Because people don't know. One thing you got to give Ozzy credit for is because if I feel like the artist is really is good, Ozzy will tell you, I'm not telling Ozzy how to panel everything out, right? I'm telling him what's happening on the page, and if I have anything specific, but then that's all Ozzy putting together, like these
Yeah.
panels and things. So that's a real talent there. But kind of like you said, that the idea for me is like not to have, like all killer, no filler. Like I don't, you know what I mean? Like I'm on a budget. I'm on time constraints. I don't have some huge budget where I can stretch something out for any period of time. So sometimes I'm worried that things move too fast. But at the same time, it's like I'm just trying to get those background pieces in there intermittently, so I don't have to have 20 pages of background on, or spend a whole chapter on background. And more importantly, with this story, is I sparse some background in on the character as it goes to, like I said, inform my motivation, so that one, people don't tap out on the MC for some of the decisions he made, right? Because like some people might not be as happy with some of the things that he's doing, but when you understand kind of, or get some insight into his background, then it makes you kind of want to keep reading into it. So like I work kind of a little bit of background in there for like the past, but that's purely just for like for motivational purposes. And then as far as the issues go, so like Extra Volume 1 is issues 1 through 4. Each issue sets up the next issue. And it's leading him down this path to his quest to become a daimyo or a lord.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm sorry, Ozzy, what were we saying?
Yeah. The reason I get into this project, and I really like it. Like honestly, we're gonna finish this together. Like it's eight issues, and we've been working for 4 years. So, but the reason I really love this project is because it's really well balanced. Not many. I work with so many writers, and they just don't know how to structure a story correctly. So it doesn't have that balance. It's just like you said, it's boring sometimes, and it's just. But this one starts with a bang first, and then goes to the dark side of the main character, and then goes to good side. It's so, how can I describe it? It's so good. You like the character, and then you don't like the character at the same time. It's so weird that I never seen that before, and I love this. I love this story too. It's so well structured, for sure.
Yeah, and even to talk about that a little bit, where obviously we have, and I was sort of alluding to it a little bit before, where there's a lot of indie comics out there, and there's been in the last 22 months a lot of good stuff that has come out. But there's also been a lot of bad stuff that's coming out, and there's also people who are rushing content right now. And when you're rushing content, or you have signed a deal where a company wants you to produce 6 issues, and you need to sort of figure out the balance and figure out where you can put filler and what you can stretch out, what you can't, and you have time constraints, well, that leads to unstructuring. And I think both of you have sort of said, we're going to take our time with this, and we're not concerned about signing a deal with anybody at the moment with that, and we're just going to produce a good story. And I think that's something that's a real problem in comics right now. And I'm curious, because I'm obviously an observer, and I am more commenting on this. I read a lot of comics. I talk about comics, but I haven't written one yet. So I have a very different view than probably the two of you, because I'm looking into the business, and I think you guys are sort of looking out of the business, meaning that there's a wall between us to some degree. So I'm curious how you feel about that, what's happening in indie comics right now, and why it's almost half and half, where half the stuff that's coming out is really good, and then the other half is not making it in a lot of ways. I feel, at least.
Well, unfortunately for Ozzy, I'm not rushing anything right now.
I like that about it.
I've never been a person that is into like, I don't really critique comics, because I feel like it's like a weird like thing for me to like make comics and then say what's good and what's bad for me personally. But I think a lot of times, like I said, just in general, like sometimes, yeah, if there's some pressure to put something out, people may rush something and not necessarily put out the quality Or I was listening to another podcast where an artist was just saying, like, some people are putting stuff out and it's just not ready to be put out, but they feel like they kind of have to do that. But it's like, you don't, like, you know what I mean? Work on your panels, work on your writing.
There's a good saying that Warren Buffett has, where if you don't see anything you like in the market, you don't have to buy anything, and you can just sit in cash. And that's how I'm feeling about comics right now, where, you can modify that statement saying, if you don't feel your product's ready or it needs just another coat of polish, what's the rush if it gets out in, 1 month or it gets out in 3 months? Because the industry is not going anywhere. It's not like tomorrow we say, no more comics, guys. We're done with this medium. Everybody can go home now. It's not like that, where in 3 months from now, it's going to be the same stuff. So I don't really get it. And that's what I mean by critiquing, is that I'm not saying people's books suck, but I'm saying maybe I have to rephrase it and say, look, there's certain things that maybe need to go through another revision. But again, when you have a contract on the line, and that contract might be worth $15,000 and your Kickstarter just did $4,000, and that there's potential royalties, it gets very tricky, because that contract you feel might not be there in 3 months. And I get that, but it's very confusing to me. I'm curious because, again, I'm not producing a comic, so maybe I'm missing something because I'm not in the industry.
Right. The only way you should rush is when you're doing a project that is a trend. That's when you rush, because you have to follow the trend and then it will go away.
Right. You got to catch it while it's hot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, I have projects that I've been working for 17 years and that I'm going to release next year. So I always finish one book and then I put it away, and then I finish another one, put it away. And we talk about this. I'm a hoarder of stories, but at one point I have to release them. So and really I hate rushing everything. Like we're working so great because I have all the time in the world, and I can do whatever I want. But yeah, the industry it's always been like that. Like especially with indies, some people just they're indies because they don't know. Sometimes they don't know how to do it correctly. So that's one of those things. There are some professionals in the industry, in the industry. So, and that's a good thing. But yeah, sometimes it's just they just need to take their time. There's no need to rush things.
Right.
And then also you mentioned something so interesting as well, where, and obviously I don't know why people on the indies don't like talking about it, and I love talking about this, is that obviously you are more killer, no filler type of guy, and you're on a budget both with money and time. And even what is that mentality? Because I know books that do a lot of filler, there's animes that do filler, and what is that like for you to say, look, I don't want to go and make this a 10-issue series and have another 48 pages or another, 90 pages of filler sprinkled throughout this entire thing, because every page does cost money. Every page does cost time. It makes it another Kickstarter, and that means that or another Indiegogo, and that means I can't get the next project out. And what is that like? Because I think that people don't know how to do things economically anymore in a lot of sectors of life. And I think while comics have become cheaper, I also think a lot of people don't know how to make that stuff even cheaper and say, look, let me cut out all the garbage. And I think it starts with the writer more than it starts with the artist. And so what is that mentality? Because I like to do things as economically as possible, but I also, as a podcaster, have to understand that I have to be entertaining to some degree. And I think it's like edutainment, which is the fusion of entertainment and education. And I don't know what the fusion of entertaining and interviewing and education looks like and what that word looks like. But obviously, I understand that too, but that's an aside.
Right. I would say like, I mean, it's kind of like it's kind of like you just said. It's like, filler is for people with a lot of money, if you will. If you got a big budget, right? Like you said, like animes, they have those filler episodes. And that's usually because, there's ad revenue going with those shows. And they don't have, and
they need time for the manga.
They need time to catch up to the manga. So,
Right.
so that's a revenue thing. And the same thing with like, even like a Marvel or a DC or someone like that, where they can maybe do, some extra side stories, which sometimes can enrich the story. But they kind of have like that budget. Like for me personally, like as an indie person, like if it doesn't serve the story, I got to get rid of it because I don't have the budget or the time to do it. Like, and there's like, even in ETA, there's a larger world around Seike, but I gotta stay dialed in on what he's doing, or else the comic could get a little more bloated and get way out of budget.
So even to go into that, because what I've seen people do now is that people in indies say, look, I gotta stick to my 4-issue miniseries because there's no way around that problem. But if I want to then go back after this is done and there's interest, I could go build out a whole nother story that crosses what happened in ETA. And then I could go build out a companion, or I could go tell that one-shot story, because I've seen a lot of people do things like that because that's a way around it. I'm curious if that's something you thought about, or even because obviously you built a world, and the world of ETA is very rich. And if you wanted to, and I'm sure you could figure out a way that you don't have to stop at 8 issues. You could go on for as long as you want if you really want to in the world of ETA. And you can keep telling stories. Obviously I'm having the guys throwing shotgun and samurai, and that story can go on forever if you wanted to. And, samurai stories, whether they're manga or American comics or just, television shows, you can go on indefinitely because there's always another adventure to tell. There's always another journey to the top. There's always what happens next, the next generation, the next generation taking place in space. But what is this like for you with this world once the story is complete? Because the world's built, and what is that like for you that the story's going to come ending in the next 8 issues? Like,
right.
That's a good question.
8 issues is, that's basically all I'm set to do for this. Like, sometimes the market demands, like, you know what I mean? It's like, I was just talking to my friend. I don't watch this show, but like, if anybody watches Dexter, and like they did like an extra, like they got a new series. It's supposed to be It's supposed to be a limited series, but people are really loving it. So they're probably going to make another one. Right. So like, it's kind of like a lot of times the response and the demand dictates whether there's more to it or there isn't more to it.
Milking the cow.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
They're
So
not
like,
killing the cow.
So like, if at the end of ETA, if when we're finally done with the after this volume, and then we'll do the next 4 issues, which will be released, and then we'll turn those into the second volume. If there's a big demand for like more of the story, then I obviously could find something to give people. You know what I mean? But as it stands, it's set to really have a nice conclusive ending at the end of 8, because the one thing that like I don't like that I don't want to do with something is to like give an ending where it's like so open, where it's like, did it even end? Like, like some people will do with things. So I want to give a definitive ending to it, but at the same time, obviously, like you said, sometimes you gotta milk the cow if it's rolling.
Yeah, I haven't read the script. I only read six scripts. So
yeah.
I don't know the ending, but so far it's so freaking good.
So even to talk about this, because one of the things is that obviously Hollywood loves open endings. We've seen it with the Marvel universe. We've seen it, with, Justice League. We've seen it with DC. Fast and Furious is the most open-ending series of all time. It's all about family, guys. It's all about family. And everything in between, and even now with comics, with DC, Marvel, and even with some of the indie stuff that's coming out now. So what is that like? Because I think people want, like, yeah, guys, this is the end. I killed off this character. He's gone. It's over. It's like there's no coming back.
Do they really die? Really, all the characters, you can bring them back even if when they're shot in the face.
So, I mean, I'm telling you, the ending to this book is that he gets his plot of land. It's just that he's dead, and it's only 6 by 5. Obviously, no, that's not the ending. But what is that like? Because I think that's something that, what initially drew people to indie is that there's a lot more freedom and there's a lot more, I guess, finalization in it. And I think that's why people are saying, look, I'm getting sick and tired of DC, Marvel, and even the big name brands. They're not going to kill Donatello from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles anytime soon, ever, if ever. And I think people are saying, look, I want a turtle to die. Like, when I'm reading The Last Ronin, I'm like, I want all these characters dead, and then I want them all dead in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and then let's get, instead of having famous painters, let's have famous engineers instead taking over in the next generation of Turtles.
Yeah, but for that story, The Last Ronin, I don't think that's a canon.
Is that canon?
Story. It's
it
an
should have been.
That's what he's saying though. You're saying it should be.
It should have been. It was great. It was the turtle story we all wanted. It should have been. They should have killed off all the turtles, and then we could have had a brand new generation, and it would have been like Star Trek, The Next Generation. It would have been great.
Yeah.
It would have been great. We would have like 50 years of new turtles. It would have been great. The amount of merchandising they would have just sold.
Yeah, but
Viacom owns Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They would have made all the money it cost them to buy the turtles back in the first year if they killed them all off.
I don't think fans will accept that.
Yeah.
I don't think fans will accept that because they're I mean they're 4 and that's it. I don't think they can make more. Like, I mean, they tried actually on the series. They included women. Not women. Turtles, female. I don't know if you know that.
I just remember Mondo Gecko.
and it didn't work. It was the TV show, and it didn't work.
That's the problem, is that they didn't make them good characters.
Actually, it was a pretty good character, but I don't think people accept new things like something that is so established that you can't change it.
Yeah,
Fair
sometimes.
enough.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess to what you're saying, like, I think that's one of the things that, like, for indie comics that you can get is that in general, they're not as attached to the IP as, say, something like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Marvel DC, right? So Robert Kirkman can end The Walking Dead, right? He writes an amazing comic and he ends it. It's done.
Right.
He can move on to the next thing.
Well,
he doesn't have to be so attached.
Speculation on that. What happened with that? But there's a different thing completely where supposedly, and this is just what I heard, is that it wasn't exactly his choice to end it. Because my understanding is that his plan, and he said in a bunch of interviews that he wanted to keep it going for a while, and there was no speculation, and I think that there was other things in force.
Yeah, but all those decisions are not they're not his decisions. He doesn't have any word saying in that TV show.
Right.
That's not how it works. He already got he gets money. He doesn't get.
I'm talking about the comic.
Yeah, the
comic.
Yeah, for the comic. Yeah.
When the comic ended at 192, there was pre-orders with comic shops for the next 6 issues, and they were all caught off guard, including Diamond. Had no idea. So where there was preview covers for 193, 194, 195, and there's a lot of stuff, and we'll never know the full story behind it. But supposedly there was other stuff going on, and there's stuff going on with Image. And if you look at what was going on, there's sort of shakeups when all that stuff was going on with Image. So things are not so. The question when we say, oh, it's his story to control, I think as far as him writing it was, but I don't know if it was fully his decision to end it, is my understanding and the way it looks as well.
Yeah, and I think that actually still kind of holds to kind of what I was trying to say just about the general IP when it comes to that. Like as an indie creator, like I can end my story and kind of move on to something, because I know like if I'm Marvel or DC, it's like, okay, yeah, I could kill off Spider-Man and Wolverine, and we could kill off Superman and Batman, and we can introduce these new characters. But is it going to make us more money in the long run off of all the IP, right? I think they're mostly on a business decision. Like, am I robbing Peter to pay Paul to introduce these new characters? You know what I mean? Is it going to offset the market for what I sell for Superman to introduce this brand new, never seen before character? Or is it just might as well just keep pushing Superman, because at the end of the day, it'd be a net zero. You know what I mean? I think they're kind of like not worried about the stories, unfortunately, as much, and more about the IP and the business end. Whereas if you're an indie person, you can kind of write your story and even write a great story that sells really well, but you can be free to kind of move on in that story and move on to something new.
Yeah.
I get the argument in which that, and I don't disagree. I just think that, I totally forgot what I was about to say, which is not a very good thing as an interviewer. So there you go. But
I don't like to I don't like to go back to a story that I always finish. I always write endings, and I stick to it. Like I don't like to just because there's demand, I'm gonna write another arc.
You say you're not trying to bring any characters back to life.
No. I think that's I mean, I don't know. I just don't like it. And for Doomsday TV, I actually I ask Spawn writer Tom Levine to write the end, so I don't have anything. I don't want to move. Even if it's bought by a company, that's the ending, and I'm actually doing it right now. I'm writing the ending. I'm not writing drawing the ending, so I don't have to move. Like I don't have to. There's no room for anything else, and that's the ending I want, and it's my story, and that's what's gonna happen.
Because it's very interesting when what's going on with, I think, stories right now, where there's issues of goalposts always moving. There's issues of revision of goalposts. It's also, if you kill a character, is that character coming back to? And look, some stories it's easier than others. I mean, one of the greatest things Marvel did is they kept Gwen Stacy dead for almost 50 years. It's that was a bold move when they killed her off, and I'm glad they brought her back. Don't get me wrong. I happen to like Spider-Gwen, and I happen to like everything that happened with her. But at the same time, what they did with her, and I thought some of that stuff was really well done, and I happen to like her character and all the covers that came out of her with Marvel. But I do think that in the long run, it wasn't the greatest decision. It was a good decision economically, but I think it also tested Marvel's credibility to some degree, because how many times do you have the ability to kill a character and then keep that character dead and have it as a really big sore point for Peter Parker and have it as, a real consequence in the Marvel universe? And I think that, when you set endings and you keep them in stone, there's a level of seriousness and there's a level of consequence that actually insists. And I don't know how you feel, because both of you are writers and have written things, but I don't know how you feel that as a writer when you say, look, this is the end, and this is the final position, and nothing's changing it. And how you feel both with, respecting the story and your fans realize it's the end, and how you are perceived in the eyes of them and even just from other writers. Because for me, as a comic reader, if I know that writer A writes a story and then 2 years later he brings that character back when he said he wasn't going to do it, that writer doesn't have as much credibility anymore, I feel.
Like I said, I think most of that stuff is tied to like if they feel like they can get another buck, or maybe that writer fell on hard times, so they're bringing back the trying to recapture the magic with the thing that got them the most money. Like, that happens sometimes too. It's like sometimes you wrote something really good and then everything else you wrote didn't work out, so you go back to what was really popular. For me personally, I mean, in general, if a character takes an L in my story, they're gone. Like that that's it. That's it for them. Which is to say, like, especially like I said, for Eta, the plan is 8 issues, and then that's it. That's generally the end of the story. Any other stories that I would write, they'll either be left intentionally, like if it's a series, obviously, then it never ends. But until like it's time to basically end the series. But anything else, I'm not really in a position to try or even have the desire right now to want to bring like a character back that would be killed off in anything that I'm doing.
Yeah, me neither.
That doesn't mean that if they not, but you make sure they're dead first. You might if they come back, it's just because they didn't die.
Right. I like to play. I like to play with characters, but like I said, to me, I have so many stories right here that I need to move on. I like the Luna brothers because these independent Filipino Americano guys, or guy girl actually, they just do story after different stories, and even when it's beloved, they just say that's it, that's the story, no more. And I kind of take on that I just want to follow that. This is my story, not your story, guys. It's mine, and I'm gonna end it the way I want it. So that's my way of thinking.
That's one of the things, and it's slightly different, but this is my show. And I'm very adamant that I don't like people telling me how to run my show any which way. I don't like people telling me, oh, share the screen. I don't like people telling me, oh, you got to say this. You can't use this word on your show. You can't speak this way. And when people start doing that, I don't appreciate it. And that's the quickest way how to get kicked off my show. That's the quickest way and if that means I won't have any interviews for a whole week or a whole month, so be it. I chose my sponsor. My sponsor did not choose me. 95% of my guests are chosen by me. People can request, and then I actually look at who you are. And, that's something that I think a lot of people don't understand, is that this is my show. It's not somebody else's show. And I think, when I write a comic, it's my comic. Every character I build in there is done a certain way for a certain reason. So if I have a gay character in there, that's because I wanted that character to be gay, not because I'm placating to anybody.
Right.
If I have a black character or a woman or a child in there and you don't understand why that person's in there, well, that's because I chose it, and you don't need to understand why that person's in there. There's no placating to anybody, and I think that's something that people really need to learn right now. And storytelling is write a good story and build good characters, and I think that the rest will come.
For sure. Yeah. As an artist, you gotta be unmovable in your ideas, because that's what makes you that's what makes you an artist. That your ideas they're very unique, so you don't have to compromise them. Period. Yeah.
And then even going on, so were you going to say something, Madison?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, I think part of it too is there's something special about a story that has a finality to it, where that's it, right? It's over. And it's not like what's gonna happen next. It's like, okay, that was a great story. I'm sad it's over. But then you can go back and kind of revisit it, and if you keep bringing things back over and over again, I think sometimes things can start to lose. They start to lose that magic that it had when people first read it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm in the middle of rewatching Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood.
Yes.
And I only saw the first 30
Yes.
episodes, but I remember certain things from it. And I'm like, I know there's only 64 episodes and that's it.
That's it.
But I also know it's not Naruto. I know it's not Boruto. I know it's not Fairy Tail. I know it's not One Piece. That is infinite. I mean, Naruto has an ending. Boruto will have an ending. One Piece will have an ending. But those shows are massive that they lose some of it where I can legitly skip arcs in One Piece. And there are consequences, but there's nothing major that happens. Unless you're watching the Whitebeard, war arc, for instance. But if you're watching Skypedia's arc, there's nothing major that happens in that arc. It's a filler arc in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Full
mean-
Metal Alchemist is a great example. To pull from.
Which one?
Full Metal Alchemist. It's
Oh.
such a great story. It's like one of the best stories ever told, in my opinion. Like it's fantastic.
It's great, and I'm loving every second of it. I'm on episode 46, so I am at the end. I'm in the red zone, to use a football term. So if I stop right now, I will get 3 points. So that's how I like to utilize anime and go through series. I am in the red zone. I do not have to punt, is all I'm gonna say. But even to go into a little inside baseball, which is what I find fascinating, is obviously Indiegogo is an interesting place to be in comics. I don't think I need to go through the entire controversy of that. I think that controversy is slightly unfounded. I think certain people are wrong, and Larry knows exactly. I just told who I think Ozzy knows who. I think Larry is wrong on that. Clearly, I think people say comics hate is on Indiegogo, and I think part of them are, but I also think part of them are on Kickstarter too. I don't think that. I think it's an easy target and it's an easy defense. I really think it's an easy statement to attack and defend with. And I think it's actually a bullshit statement in a lot of ways. Because I can go on Kickstarter right now and find 20 Comicsgate Kickstarters off the top within minutes. And I could do the same thing on Indiegogo. But
They're everywhere.
what?
They're everywhere.
And so is the other side, which is the extreme left. It's not to get too political. They're everywhere too. Congratulations. Everybody's everywhere because
Everywhere.
if you have a comic, why wouldn't you want to be on Indiegogo or Kickstarter? It doesn't matter. You just want your book funded.
Right.
So having said that and dismissing that, you are, though, funding issues 1 through 4. And I know issues 1 and 2 were funded before all this. And they were, I believe, done because they're on Comixology. And so what is this like, knowing that half the book is done for this first, half of the series, and that you still, I think part of issue 3 is done. I think issue 4 might be done at this point too.
We have 6.
Are all 6 done, or?
We're at the end of the 6th.
We're at the end of 6 right now. Yeah.
So is 6 done or no?
No, 6.
No, 6 isn't completely
I'm
done.
on page 16, I think.
And so my question is that obviously we're doing the first 4, but what made you come over and say, hey, look, I don't want to do single issues anymore, but I want to get this thing done? Because that's a very different model when you start saying, hey, I want bigger content out there. I want to get this story complete, and that I'm more trying to go into a graphic novel position and a big book position versus giving somebody a floppy and giving them a floppy every 3 months versus saying, hey, I want to do a 180-page, 300-book type deal.
Right. So generally, just based on the pace at which I've been putting things out, I felt like putting it out as a volume was going to be one good thing for the customer, especially for people who have already read 1 and 2, and in general, to put it out on a slightly kind of higher quality paper. When you get like kind of a trade paperback, it's a bigger deal. It's like a higher quality book, and I think this story also, it reads really well in that form. So like these first 4 issues combined into one thing is the way it's going to read is going to be a little different than if you're picking up the single issues. You know, one, and you read one, and then maybe like, a month later you get 2, and then when we do 3 and 4, so those still ultimately in the long run be available as single issues. But there's going to be, but the way I'm doing this for this Indiegogo is essentially this is going to be a way to get your hands on issue 4 and 3 really early. And then also to kind of get some bonus content as well. Some bonus things in there. We have different tiers where you can even go as far as to tiers where you get issues 5 and 6 early before they come out, and some other books that I have as well. So there's a lot of bonuses to
so
this Indiegogo.
You can go further into this because I am curious, and obviously there's been a shift in how things are read. It's weird because I've seen it go both ways, where there are kids who are now coming to Comic-Cons where their first book is a graphic novel. It is not a comic. So they're coming up to a creator, plopping down a graphic novel, saying, hey, here's my first book. And they're all happy, and that's cool when they come up and they're like, yo, here's my first thing, and it's a trade paperback. And there's that, it's kind of a weird circumstance, I guess, if you're a creator who's been around for 30 years and you're used to floppies. And also, there are people now who, go to Barnes & Noble and, they'll go to Barnes & Noble once a month and they'll walk out with 10 graphic novels, and I've seen it. But they're not ordering comics and floppies. They don't want that. And then there's people who say, look, I just want floppies. I'm in my comic shop every Wednesday because I don't want to wait, 8 months for a floppy, And so I've seen it go both ways, and it's very interesting. But also what's happening in the industry is that we're seeing 72-page one-shots coming out. I'm a big Zenescope fan, and they're doing a lot of 72-page one-shots that are coming out now, every quarter or every 2 months. And they're moving away from doing, 24 pages or 22 pages every month to do like 272 one-shots that connect with each other. And so what is that like for you to say, hey, look, I want to deliver even a longer form story, and I want to give this to my consumer. And then obviously, I don't think you have to worry about Ozzy disappearing, but also people on the indies are getting signed up really quickly to bigger and better things, and that's been a big concern. And the last 22 months, I know a lot of people who are now working for, bigger companies. And so I know I threw a lot of stuff at both of you, so you could pick what you want to answer and talk about, but what is that like? Because there is a big shift going on, and it is very much the Wild West in a lot of ways.
The way I see it is when you do a trade paperback, you are also doing it for economic reasons, because that's cheaper just to print 4 books at once as opposed to the single issues, and that's a big help for the creator. And not only that, you can it's better for the reader too, because you don't have to wait that long for 4 issues. You get them at once, and you can also sell them individually and at conventions, which is where you sell the most. So that's
right.
That's why.
I would say it's kind of like you said. There's some people who are trade people. They're like trade paperback people, and they're single issue people. And so I feel like I feel like as an indie creator, sometimes if you have and honestly, you could speak to this maybe on your thoughts, but mid to like 2005 to maybe 2012, trade paperbacks were the thing, right?
Oh yeah.
People were moving away from the single issues, and everything was coming out as a trade paperback. And then things have kind of shifted back to more to single issues. And I think that, for me, a single issue is more affordable for people. And it's also kind of a proof of concept, right? If you can sell this single issue on your series, then you know how far you can take it, or if you should continue it. things like that. And at the same time, like you said, like the trade is a way for like some people, that's what they want too. They want to read the whole thing basically as much as they can at once. And they don't really want to wait, right? It's like
That's me.
right. Right. So I think for what I have is it's kind of like the best of both worlds. And like I said, I think this is a way, one, for people who have read the first two issues to get their hands on the next two issues with some bonus content a little early. And then, but also like when the campaign's finished and everything's fulfilled, then there'll still be also some available as single issues as well. So you could have the option, which is kind of like I mean, a lot of places are doing that. Like they have the Giants, and you can still buy like the single issues, I guess, where you can buy like, you know, this limited series all in one, or we'll still sell the single issues, and we're kind of doing that. But that's kind of like, I guess, my thoughts on the single issue versus like a trade.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's very interesting to me because I'm seeing both sides of it, and obviously, I'm a comic book investor, so I'm looking for what people want. I'm looking for what to sell, and I don't have a problem selling, you know, limited edition graphic novels if they're going to be sellable and if there's variant covers. But obviously, you know, my entire background, and it's not a secret, is that I made a lot of money selling a lot of variant covers and a lot of getting in on early books very cheaply. When you buy a variant for 10 bucks and you sell for 150, you know, and then I pick up books and then I wait till they mature. And then there's a whole science that I figured out. And it's not technically math, but it's a formula of understanding what does what and how it does it, you know, and then it's been working for the last 10 years. I mean, obviously, I lean towards single issues because I view it from an economic side. But that doesn't mean that I haven't sold trade paperbacks, because what's going on with Marvel right now is Marvel hasn't reprinted a bunch of books in trade paperbacks, and those books in good condition sell for more money than what they sold for originally. And it's a very weird concept, because books, and depending on the book, depending on the story, depending on the edition, it does tear up sometimes, and it's kind of a crazy entity in of its own right. So, you know, obviously that's something that is super, super interesting in that regard. So obviously that's kind of cool, but that's an aside for a whole different discussion, and you all can pay for that class in June. The comic book investing class, guys. It's a little pricey. You know, I'm just letting everybody know that it's worth every cent. And I do want a Dodge Challenger Hellcat SRT, and well, that's one way I'm going to get it. And yes, I will make that an Okari. And so I'm going to go wrap it. And if I sell 1 million books of Roger Curtis's book, he's going to buy the wrap for me of Dambe. So that's the deal. He announced it officially on my show last night. I'm going to hold him to it. When I sell 1 million copies of his book of Dambe, he's buying the wrap. So I'm not going to let him wrap it. Don't get me wrong. I don't trust him to wrap it. He could buy the wrap, but for my nice Dodge Challenger Hellcat SRT, and it'll be fun. So I'm just saying. So I'm sorry to both of you, but you know, if you offered me the same deal for this book, I just will have to politely refuse. But I hope you understand. I'll still sell 1 million copies of your book, you know, but I just, you can't wrap my Dodge Challenger Hellcat SRT. You'll have to wrap my Corvette instead.
All right, different one.
Yeah.
But anyway, I digress here because I do want to get into rewards. So obviously, you could pick this book up digitally, and then you could also pick it up physically. And I think this is the physical, or one of the physical covers. I want to.
That's the cover. That's the cover Ozzy did.
And who is Ozzy again?
What's that?
Who is Ozzy again? Yeah.
Yeah, that's that would be the cover for the second issue right there. And basically the design of the cover is essentially kind of pressure points. It has a little bit to do with what happens in that issue, and things like that. So, and those are real pressure points. That's how they actually are. But yeah, we have all the rewards actually come with a physical version of the book.
So this is my question is that was this cover used for issue 1, the first round?
So that is the cover for issue 2, and yes, that's the cover that is the cover for issue 2.
I asked the question because I thought I saw it on Comixology, but I was like, I'm not too sure. You know, a lot of thoughts go through my head at once.
Right. Yeah. So if you get the digital version of the volume, you'll also get a physical copies of issues 1 and 2. With that, so like I said, even on the digital tier, you're going to get physical copies of the book in some form. And then like we go all the way up. We have
I haven't. I'll read it all. I got it covered.
Okay.
So you have physical with trading cards. So then you have physical copy with Unicorn Meatly, KOS Last Bloodline, Volume 1. Obviously the trading cards, and then there's a few other stuff as well. I think that. So what are the other books that are with this once we start tearing up? Because I have pictures of that stuff, and I think this is super interesting. So we have King of Sweden, Last Bloodline. Obviously we have Unicorn Melee, which that book looks sick, and that's like right up my style of art. Like, and then we have Twin Powers, you know. And so what are those books? Because this is very interesting when creators offer not just the current book, but they offer other books as well from their collection that they've worked on and written and have put out there. Because obviously people come into people's Indiegogos and Kickstarters all at different points. And I like when there's an ability to get a backlog of somebody.
Right. So like for me, those are other books. Those are some of my other books. And I just wanted to provide basically a lot of value with the higher tiers. Because I feel like a lot of times when I'm back in a Kickstarter, if I spend like, $85, $100 on a project, and I still only get like 2 issues of the book, and then I get all the extra stuff, but I still only have 42 pages to read. And I didn't want to do that for mine. I wanted to make sure, like, if you're going to back one of those higher tiers, that you have 300, 280, 250 pages of things to read along with the project that you're backing. So that was kind of the idea behind it. And also the kind of offer, because like, so here's the thing with 17 plus comics is there's obviously a certain demographic that you can't reach, right? Which is younger people, depending on the parent, right? Because some parents let their kids read whatever, but depending on the parent, there's a demographic that you can't reach. So there might be someone who may want the book, want ETA Volume 1, but may also want something that they can have their children read, or something that their little brother or little sister can read, or something like that. And so there's some books that are more appropriate for all ages, like the King of Sweden Last Bloodline, or at the higher tiers like the Power Twins. Unicorn Melee is also a 17 plus book, but like I just wanted to have those different things to offer people.
To even talk about this, because I love funnel Linux, and I don't know if you ever heard that word. Ozzy's heard me talk about that word all the time. So the idea is that Kickstarter and Indiegogo are funnels, and obviously, you're bringing in people into it, and then there's a bunch of your rewards are exits on what you want to buy, and then if you're on Kickstarter, you have backer kit. It's okay, Opie, I'm here. It's okay. She loves funnels. But it's the idea that when you have options such as these other books, and also to drive traffic to your Indiegogo, to talk about ETA, obviously we're also talking about this. And when somebody comes into your Indiegogo, since it's a funnel, all the exits are now visible. And so that's another thing also where it's an easy selling point, because it doesn't cost you any more money to list that and to market that book anymore. And that's another thing. I don't even know if that even come across your mind, because a lot of people I speak to, when they put up their backlogs, they don't even think about things like that. They just do it, but they don't understand the business side of what they just did. And it's a very good thing, because obviously I might come into ATA and I would say, man, that Unicorn Melee book looks sick. I didn't even know it existed before. Like just from the art, it looks like it's an anime. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to be very nice and say something slightly like this right here doesn't get me excited. This right here gets me really excited. And this right here gets me like, oh, this is kind of cool too. And it's just like what I like in my style preference, where I'm just like, when I see this, I'm like, what's that? Because that looks dope. Like, and so for me, I'm coming in for ATA, and then I see that, and it's just an easy sale point because it's bringing me downstream into a funnel.
Right, and that's kind of the idea too. Is like because one, like I said, the idea is that run this Indiegogo to help get this volume funded and get some funds in, and which helps us finish the book quicker and get things out faster. But at the same time, like I said, offering kind of like a value added thing where, maybe there's something else that someone else might like, where maybe if they were on the cusp of backing and then they say, okay, well, I kind of like this ATA thing and I'm not sure if I'm going to back it, but then maybe they see something like Unicorn Melee or something and they go, oh, well, I definitely see that. So I might as well back it because then I can get both of them. Because I know, so it still helps push the ATA, but more importantly too, I feel like it also shows that, as this is my first Indiegogo, I think it shows that I complete my books too. So it shows that everything that I'm giving out is completed. Like, there are things that are complete, so you can trust that you're going to get your project, get your book and all of that as well. Because you can see that the previous work of books that have been completed.
Let's turn to Ozzy. How important is it to complete your books, Ozzy?
Very important.
No, because I don't know if you saw my good friend Larry. He went on a tangent about how like somebody didn't complete his book on his show, and like he went ballistic for like an hour.
Yeah. No, it is actually it's the trust. It's the trust of your fans or your customers, and it's very important. I mean, I'm trying it right now. It's fucking COVID, and I'm a little behind on my stuff too. I mean, it is what it is, but you need to be on top of things and just deliver.
Yeah, and then there's a few more rewards as well. Obviously, you could get all three of these books, so you could get this right here, and obviously you get all three, and you save a little money there. You get drawn into the book and challenge this guy. You may or may not win. I don't know.
May or may not win.
Hey, I'm keeping it open. I'm trying to sell this.
Right.
I'm doing all the work.
You may or may not win.
I'm just saying, if I'm doing it and I throw myself into that book, you're damn sure I'm going to win. Even if I have to cut out the panel myself. You'd be surprised what I could do. I'll cut out the panel and then I'll put a new panel in there of my copy. That's all that matters is what's in my world, not anybody else's.
I will say about that tier too, it's not like a tier, it's not an extra tier. It's not like you're going to be an extra in the background. Like you would, and that's why there's only one spot for it. But if anyone was to pick that tier up, they're going to be in the book, like featured for a good 10, 11, 12 pages.
You're going to have a Goku Frieza battle, is all I'm going to say.
It's the same we did in the Sword and the Sorcerer, just to add you as a character.
Right.
Yeah. So it's very cool. And then also, if you would like to become a master, you could pick this up too. And then you too can understand the way of the ninja slash samurai, if you so choose, depending on what side you want to pick in your world. So I'm just throwing that out there.
That's right.
And so obviously there's a lot of rewards, and you could go anywhere. I think the first one is, I think, 12 or 15 on the digital front, and then it goes up from there.
Yeah, it goes up. The first one's 12, and then it goes up from there to 25, then 35, and 55, and then continues on.
Yeah, all the way up to $750 plus. So obviously there's a lot of stuff going on with this, and obviously I want to be able to back it. I'm going to give you guys a chance to promote it in a second, but I do want to back out of all of this, and I do want to talk about obviously conventions and where comics are going, and obviously San Diego Comic-Con just happened, and I actually didn't hear any news out of that whatsoever, except the fact that a bunch of people I knew went and said it was good. I heard that Emerald City Comic-Con was good. I know WonderCon is rolling over in April, I think. But the big news is Anime NYC, where Omnicron came out of that, and the only reason why I know that is the White House mentioned it. So when the White House mentions your AnimeCon, it's a good and it's a bad thing at the exact same time, So obviously, I don't think anybody, was guilty. I don't think anybody was being malicious, and I want to make that crystal clear. But I do think that cons are not safe ground at the moment. I think that it is crystal clear that there are a lot of problems, and they were doing a good job at Anime NYC from what I heard, where there was masks, vaccination cards, but even still. So I'm curious how you two feel about it, because it is still very much up in the air. And I don't know what this looks like going into 2022, because con season is over at the moment, and it's going to kick back up come March, April, May, and so forth. And I'm trying not to be too political on this, but again, I am probably not going to a con for another year.
Yeah, I got my invitation. I've been getting invitations for conventions for next year. I'm not doing it. I just got one. Well, I'm doing one that is so close over here in the next town, but it's going to be a small one. But they invite me to a bigger one in Colorado, and I'm not going to do that because obviously
Denver,
it's in Colorado Springs. Also, they invite me to the one in Colorado, but I'm not doing it. It's really not safe. Not yet.
I mean, I'm not trying, and I want to make this crystal clear before any of us get in trouble. I'm not trying to blast any convention or anything like that.
Me neither. I love them.
This is not what we're doing. So just so if a con gets angry at me, we're just having an open conversation about it.
Yeah, they're not going to invite me anymore. But that is true. Like when there is a reunion of a lot of people, you're not safe from this thing. Right. And even when you're covered, there's always the risk. And we just need to be safe. Period. Yeah.
After you guys all said that, I think it's going to be more like I've got a bunch of cons that had to roll over from COVID. So like I still have like cons that owe me space because of canceled conventions and things. And I did 2 outdoor conventions this year. And I did so like they were doing that to try to keep things safer. Very small.
That's a good idea. I never heard of that.
So they were just outdoors, small convention, 3 Rivers Con here in Pittsburgh, where I'm from. And then, but I did do one indoor convention. I did Awesome Con in DC.
That's where I used to go and hang out. I love Awesome Con.
So I did Awesome Con. One, there was obviously not as many people as there normally would be at a convention like that. And 2, it's very true because I just had my friend Ray's Arts, who's like an artist. He went to Anime NYC just to be a part of it.
It was very much a roller coaster, up and down with good things and bad things. Is how I heard it went.
Right. But I think that's the thing. It's like anytime there's that many people gathering when it comes to like COVID or any type of, the flu or whatever, there's definitely an increased risk for doing those things. And I think people just got to assess their risk and what they feel like, they want to do in regards to it. Because as much as cons try to enforce mask mandates and things, people aren't going to follow those. And there's no one that's really going to check them on it. You know what I mean? Like just from being at the conventions that I went to this year, it's like, whatever it is, just assume that people are just going to be out there breathing. You know what I mean? How they want to before you get into it.
This is my next question, because obviously I'm at the stage now where, this is the first year I'm ever profitable on any of my shows. I'm actually in the black and not the red for the first time in the 9 years I've been doing this. I'm doing more interviews than I've ever done before. My viewership is slightly down, but collectively it is up just because I'm going more numbers and I have more contacts. And so for me at this stage, and obviously my digital footprint's a lot bigger. So for me, it makes no sense when I was doing conventions as a panelist and trying to network and hand out business cards that wasn't working. But what I'm doing now is. And so for me as a business, and this is a project and a business for me, this is working. And so why do I want to go back to what didn't work, what is a much harder path? And I'd be up there lecturing, talking about podcasting or money or Tezuka or something in comics, and I would get no followers. I'd hand out buttons. Sometimes I'd get thank you. Sometimes some people would talk to me after. But, now I can go and run a Facebook ad, and I could go be like, do you like comics? And I legitimately can get 900 people liking my Facebook page for like $50 with a simple question, or DC or Marvel like my Facebook page, and it works. And obviously that's an oversimplification of what I do, and then out of those 900, maybe I'll get 40 who actually are loyal followers. But if I do that enough time, I now have a following at a very, very cheap rate. So that's my whole thing, is that I'm at that stage. Not to mention that my, with Twitter and then networking and then actually commenting on other people's stuff. So, I'm in a very different position with cons. That doesn't mean I want them to go out of extinction, but for me, from a business standpoint, they're not the answer. And I don't even think virtual cons are either. I think understanding algorithms and all that stuff is the future. And I think, understanding what works, and Instagram's great, Twitter's great, Facebook's great, TikTok. I don't know anything about TikTok, but I'm going to get into it sooner rather than later. So that's how I feel. And maybe it's because I'm coming at some point, I'm going to produce a comic, but I came in from being a podcaster first, so I have a different viewpoint on all of this.
Yeah.
And so does she. So that, and then even going further into off of that, where do you think the future of comics is going? Because we're going right into the controversial stuff. So obviously, where do you think it's going? Because we're still in what would I dub the COVID era, but it's obviously shifted and changed slightly. And the last 22 months have arguably been the biggest comic boom since before the Image crash in the 1990s. I think is a fair assessment, especially for the indies.
For indies, for sure.
So I'm curious where all this is going, because I don't know if it's going to continue, and I have no idea. I actually don't have an opinion on this.
I feel like, it's kind of like it's like one of the things that I think I said this on JD's thing the other night, is that on JD Calderon's show, is that one of the positives of the whole COVID lockdown was the digital engagement shot way up for people who had platforms digitally, regardless. If you have a website, a YouTube page, if you were a small time merchant and
doing
you
this.
and you ship projects. So like it was such a it really was like creating the online engagement. Basically just put it on steroids. And I think the future really is going to be about who once, you know, because things are going to be changed forever in general. Like, you know, things aren't going to be like the same just from commerce and how people do things, how people work. That's not going to be the same, but it's going to be the people who can keep this essentially like this. It's almost like a bull run on digital interaction, right? Like if you're talking about the market, Andrew, if you're talking about the market, it's like a bull run on digital interaction, and it's going to be people who can keep those people that are really engaged and have been engaged since like April 2020. After all of this, that I think are gonna have the best success going forward. And I think part of that is just branching out and making sure you're not staying, you know, resting on your laurels, like anything from a business standpoint. Like if you're doing comic books kind of as a hobby only, and it's like you just want to get your book out, and maybe you had some success selling your books, but you haven't necessarily taken a business mindset to it, then I think you might be kind of, you know, once things start to die back down, you might find that your engagement goes down. So, I mean, in general, I don't think anything's going to change too much as long as, you know, you're continuing to push whatever it is you got or whatever it is you're doing.
So how do you feel, Ozzy, on this? Because, and then I'll sort of give my 2 cents. I sort of do have an opinion, but
well, not, like Madison said, nothing has changed yet. I mean, what has changed is the prices. They have skyrocketed because of the printing problems, the 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 paper shortage, the people shortage, and all that. But other than that, it keeps. I mean, it also has changed in the way. Right now, a lot of people are putting a lot of books without too much quality because the people are having the time to do it. But and
there, I'll throw a word out to you that might sum this up really, really quickly. A
yeah,
lot of people are putting out a lot of books without an editor.
that is true.
Yeah.
That's a really good way to put it, right?
Yeah.
And
Sure.
and that's a lower quality because they might not have experience that an editor can bring. So I I see a change. I foresee a change. Maybe I'm being pessimist, but
So you're like me. You're always right eventually because you're a pessimist.
no, yeah. I mean that it's gonna weed out a lot of bad artists or bad writers or bad companies. All this shit, and it's gonna be a good in terms of quality. All the big companies are gonna still produce, uh, or maybe not. I don't know. The but the quality on indies, they have to be better for sure. Um,
So
if
so
if we're gonna survive all this,
So this is I don't know much about comics. Obviously, I think that there's a shift on who's getting cover work right now in comics. I don't know the full future of indie comics. I don't know the full future of the big time players, but I know that Batman's going to be around for another 100 years. Wonder Woman, Iron Man, Spider Man. That's an easy gamble to take just because it's just going to be what it's going to be. They are billion-dollar franchises, if not multi-billion-dollar franchises at this point. I don't know how much it would cost to buy Batman from DC, but it would be really expensive.
but I don't know if you've seen the names on the books. They have changed. More like for people in third world countries or different places where
Pay less.
they can save. Yes, they can save. Not or maybe not pay less, but
You know who I just had on legitly like 5 hours ago, right? I mean, I had Claudia, man, I can't say her last name, but she's from Italy. And we spoke about this sort of live on the air, why people get hired from places like Italy, places like,
Brazil,
Brazil.
Mexico, yeah.
And look, there are people in the indie comic world who do this too. I mean, I don't have a problem with it, but if I can back an American team, I hate to say this, and you can call me whatever you want to call me for it, but I would rather, to some degree, back an American team, first and foremost, or at least have the book somewhat printed in the U.S. I like to back homegrown businesses.
Right.
I also don't have a problem with an international artist, but I also understand that those people aren't making good money collectively. If DC hires somebody from Brazil, they're not paying them what they were paying. I can't think of a artist from Marvel off the top of my head. Who's right now working on Marvel, who's in the States, is probably making at least $100 more paid than somebody in Brazil is. Easily, I'm willing to take that bet. So, yeah, that's something that's interesting. But I guess what I'm saying is that I'm part of digitalization 2.0, where there's a great digital pivot, meaning that in 2020, I was running, conversations in pop culture, and then when COVID hit in March, I was like, man, I'm so backed up. I got to do something. And then I started doing live streaming after doing about 7 years of pre-recorded stuff. And then I started kicking up my social media, and I started taking a way more interesting liking to it. And so obviously that to me is the biggest change. And it's not even so much a comic change. It's just a work change. It's a business mindset change. And I think it runs through comics. I don't think comics is the change. I think the idea that you need to have a digital footprint. Like, you go on to my Twitter, I'm shooting out 150 to 200 tweets every single week, on a bunch of weird content at a bunch of weird times. I legitimately have Bad Girl art coming out at 1 a.m. on my Twitter and on my Facebook. I then have Disney princess stuff coming out at legitimately at 4 a.m. And you're saying, but nobody's liking that. But oddly enough, what happens is that, I have posts from 6 months ago that have gotten 100 likes because somehow they got triggered in an algorithm 6 months later, and that affects it. And so I have a very large digital footprint where I have things that run through. So that's what I think is the change.
Yeah,
I don't
that too. You're gonna have to learn all these new tricks, everything that we didn't use. Like I come from a different from the old guard, like where you just to do everything on paper.
Let me ask a question to Madison, because this will go to your point. Madison, how old are you?
I am 36.
So you're closer to my age than Ozzy. So I'm 28. So obviously I've come into Twitter and I've spent a lot of time. I've spent a lot of money. Not a lot of money. I spent about $200 on a bunch of classes on Twitter and social media, and over the course of the last 3 years, which isn't terrible, all things considering. But I've spent also a lot of time listening to people and being involved in a lot of things, and there's a reason why, because I'm utilizing that stuff, and that's where I think the change is. But that's just what I think. But I don't know what's going to happen to indie. But I do think that also Kickstarter and Indiegogo is slightly oversaturated right now.
Yeah, and it's not going to get better.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to definitely add to it in January, because we all know what's coming in January. And then my actual comic book is coming in March. It's some of my best writing. It's really good. I'm waiting on the artist. He's very lazy. He's right now protesting. It's very unfortunate. It's really hard when you're protesting yourself and you're demanding a pay rate. And the negotiation between the writer and the artist on my book, which is me, is so complicated.
Yeah, especially when you don't know.
You try negotiating with yourself.
See, this is what happens. It's like my partner on the Sword and the Sorcerer. He was just like, he didn't sign any contract with Mr. Cover. I'm not gonna. And now it's a year. It's been a year, and we still haven't the cover. But I'm not gonna talk about that.
You're not going to talk about it live.
Maybe later. Maybe later.
So anyway, obviously, I don't want to keep going with this, and we've been talking for a while, and I'm sure that you guys already hate me enough. So it's all right. It's all right. It's a rite of passage to hate me. But I do want to give both of you a chance for self-promotion, because obviously that's what this is about. It's about increasing digital footprint. So where can people find ATA? Where can people find this Indiegogo? Where can people even go beyond it? At this point, I don't think backing an Indiegogo is enough. I think you have to follow people on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You should do all three, but you should at least do one.
Right.
All three is brownie points, and you're really buying favor.
Right.
So where can people
Curry
find
favor?
Where can people find all of you and all this stuff that's going on? And obviously, I'm going to throw some links up because I have them at the moment. So obviously, but while I'm doing that, I don't know who wants to go first.
Go ahead, Madison.
I'll go ahead. So you can catch us if you just type in Golden Tree Publishing. That's the name for Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can catch us at Golden Tree Publishing. You can catch us at goldentreepublishing.com if you just want to get your hands on some of our books that we sell direct from our website. So that's goldentreepublishing.com. It's Golden Tree TV on YouTube because we have some gaming and some other stuff on there. So it's not just all comics. And then, of course, most importantly, check out the Indiegogo, ATA Volume 1. Check that out. Back it. And one of the things that we are doing is once we get the first 10 people who are backed, I'm going to ship you guys issues 1 and 2 on me before Christmas. So you'll just get those just to hold you over until the volume's ready. But yeah, you can check us out on all those platforms. Give us a like, back the project on Indiegogo, and keep an eye out for us.
Links up in the description for those who want to back the Indiegogo. In case
Also on Comixology, there are 1 and 2, right?
Yeah. You can get them on Comixology or Amazon, but you can also get them directly from me. So at goldentreepublishing.com, which is even better.
It's probably better, yeah.
Yeah.
So as I was stating, if you want to back the Indiegogo, it's up there. It's in an hourly link because Facebook doesn't like, straight up links sometimes. And that's what I found, where they will actually take down the stream, and they've done it before. So now I put a lot of links in hourly links, but it's the full link. So this is the same link here, same link there for the Indiegogo, but it says it right there. So you can click that, it'll bring you right to the Indiegogo. What about you, Ozzy?
Excellent.
Well, you can, besides all the links that he already said for ETA, you can find it, the book, The Sword and the Sorcerer, a sequel of the movie in comic book format. It's still on demand, it's selling, and next year is going to be on Kickstarter with more rewards. You can find me on any social networks under my name and under Gemini Comics. And just buy my books, give me money. I need some new shoes. And I gotta say, I do listen to you, Andrew, and look what I bought.
Yes, finally!
So,
It's a great book. I'm halfway through, and it's like a game changer in which that once you understand it, and we can go through it, and my favorite word is funnelenics, and it is a game-changing book. So
I'm learning new tricks.
Yes, it's so important. And I don't want to get into it because I could have a whole hour conversation.
Yeah, that's a different conversation.
So obviously, though, and I've been saying it, that you have to support indie content creators, indie projects, because without their support, and the money, because that's what we're talking about first and foremost. These projects cannot get done. And it is very important to understand that, it's not just money with indie comics, but the money is needed in a lot of ways. Right. So obviously that's something that, you should be throwing money at these projects, whether you're throwing just $12, $25 or more. Every dollar counts on Indiegogo, counts on Kickstarter, it counts on any other platform. Or if you don't like those types of platforms, you should just buy the books directly from people's sites, because that also helps indirectly and directly. But let's say, it's obviously Christmas, money is tight, money is complicated. I get it. You're looking for gifts for people. If that's the case, or you're still recovering from COVID, or whatever's going on, you got 15 things going on and you just can't afford it at the moment, one of the best things that you can do is actually follow people on social media. Follow them on Twitter, follow them on
the links.
Share the links out, put it on your personal Facebook page, tweet it out. Every little bit helps. And if you do wind up backing or pledging, I don't know what it's called on Indiegogo, but share that out, because it is a big deal. And it also tells people that, hey, I backed this project, maybe you should back it too. Because I could tell you that when somebody says, Andrew, you got to see this anime, Andrew, you got to read this comic, Andrew, you got to read this book, it gets me across the line a lot faster than when, somebody who's selling me books says, you got to read this book, man. Never met you in your life, but here it is. It's the greatest thing you'll ever read. And we're at a con. I'm like, it doesn't do it for me. But Ozzy, if I see Ozzy at times, like, oh man, did you see so-and-so's book? You see Madison's book over there? I'm like, where's Madison? Because I know Ozzy. So obviously that's the thing there. So That's something that goes a long way. And then as far as for me, I'm an indie content creator too. I have sponsors. Obviously I have 2 sponsors. I'm trying to get a third, hopefully that'll happen sooner. And I'm grateful for my sponsors. So if you're printing indie books, obviously use Mixum, drop Andrew Davis, get 5% off. Also, when you're packing up your books, use BCW supplies, bags and boards. They're expensive. You can use Pop Anime Comics pretty much indefinitely for 10% off. And I know people who wind up buying, $500 with the bags and boards, and $50 off of, 10% off of 500 is 50. So it goes a long way. And it might not seem like a big deal, but when you do that 3 or 4 times a year, that's $200, and every dollar counts. And that is an affiliate link, so I do get money for that. And I appreciate when people actually buy stuff using my code. And you're saving 10%, so everybody wins. They get business, I get an affiliate, and you get a discount. So, use that. And I do have Buy Me a Coffee, and I appreciate when people throw me money, say, hey, man, I know that sometimes you don't have a sponsor. Sometimes, you have bills to pay with this, and I just want to help you get across the finish line, because all that money is legitimately just sitting in a PayPal account waiting for a bad day that I can't afford, StreamYard. And when that happens, I could stay in the game for a whole nother season. And a season for me is a year. So, obviously that money is not going into my pocket. It is legitimately sitting so that I could keep surviving and keep doing this. And I'm good for another 2 years if I don't have another sponsor for 2 years. So obviously that's sort of seasons 4 and 5. So that's a big deal. But obviously the more money I have and the more money people throw me, buy me a coffee or buy a live read or buy a guaranteed guest spot or anything in particular, that obviously helps to continue going. January is Kickstarter, and I probably will be on a show tonight, possibly around 10:30. Talking on Indie Volt, because Luke Stone and Randy Zimmerman battled COVID and have had a tough time with it. And I'm actually donating some guest spots. So, you can go bid on that, and not guest spots, actually live reads. So you can go bid on that, and that's all going to charity. So you go bid on that. And I don't know how many they're going to offer up, but if I'm in the thing and there's auctions and a bunch of people have been on, I say, let's do 10. I got no problem doing 10 of them going into 2022. So, and I'll match the highest bid. So if somebody bids up to $20, I'll do 10 of them at $20 a pop. So go check that out. I'll probably be around there 10:30. And that's all I have. So I don't know who wants the final word, who wants to end this show the right way. If you guys want to go get swords and fight each other to determine the final word, I am absolutely fine. Or, you could just take some shotguns and have a good time that way too.
Yeah. I don't have a shotgun. But buy ETA and buy The Sword and the Sorcerer. Those are the two best indie books right now.
Yeah, hey, I'll double that. Get ETA, Sword and the Sorcerer. You're not gonna be disappointed with either of them. It's a really great story. And it's I think something that even if you didn't think you might enjoy a samurai story, you might enjoy this one. So check it out.
Well, I don't think I could have said it any better myself. So I believe that is a wrap